This part, yes. Please, can you read these four sentences?
Okay, one sec. Shylock is at first really reluctant to grant
Reluctant.
the loan,
Mhm.
citing abuse he has suffered at Antonio's hand. He finally um agrees to lend the sum to Bassanio without interest upon one condition: if Antonio were unable to repay it at the specific date, Shylock may take a pound of Antonio's flesh. Bassanio does not want Antonio to accept such a risky condition. Antonio is surprised by what he sees as the moneylender generosity. No usance interest is asked for, and he signs the contract.
Mhm. So what do you get from these three sentences? Reluctant, also, let me just explain reluctant very quickly. Reluctant, it means you're kind of, you're a little sketchy. You're not really sure you want to. So when we say Shylock is at first reluctant to grant the loan, he wasn't really, comfortable. He didn't really want to. He's a little, taken back. But then he accepted. This is the meaning of reluctant, when you're not really sure.
Mm.
All right. So what do you understand from these few sentences?
Um, Shylock didn't, like you said, didn't want to give the money, but then he gave it with one condition, which was to, if Antonio doesn't give the money up to the due date, Shylock has to take a pound of flesh from Antonio, and Bassanio does not want him to take the agreement between them and just forget about it. But Antonio would do anything for his friend, and so he did it, thinking he would pay the money before the due date.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
That's you missed one small detail in the last sentence. The what do we mean by the moneylender's generosity? No interest. And Antonio was surprised by this. Why is that?
I don't think Shylock was generous. If that's the case, if that's
Okay,
what the sentence says.
not exactly, because usually, like if you remember in our last lesson, when we talked about how money lenders work, do they just give you money? Do they lend you money and then get back the same amount, or do they get a bigger amount after they lend?
They get a bigger amount.
Exactly. This is usury or usance or interest, right? And even banks do this. For example, if you take credit from a bank, if you take a loan, if you take 1,000, even let's say you take 1 million from a bank, when you give it back, you have to give more than 1 million. It's not 1 million. You have to give 1 million and something. This is the credit for the bank because they gave you this money. Do you get the idea? Uh,
Yeah.
this is what was typical for Shylock. Shylock typically gave money with interest. He never gave money without interest. But this time, when he gave money to Antonio, what was different is that there was no interest. Do you get the idea? That is why Antonio is surprised. Why he's surprised because he was expecting that the 3,000 ducats that Shylock lended him will have to be returned more than 3,000. But Shylock said no interest this time. But he made this little pound of flesh clause in the contract. Do you get the idea?
Yeah.
So this is the whole little twist of the play. Antonio gave up his interest. قال لهم سامحكم فيه لكن if you're late by law I'm entitled to take a pound of flesh. Of course, Antonio, when he saw this, he thought, wow, it's a good deal, right? Because there's no interest. It means if he takes 3,000, he will only have to return 3,000, not more. So if we're thinking about lending and borrowing, this is a great deal. There's no extra interest, no extra money he has to pay to Shylock. And just like you said, he was pretty sure that he would be able to pay him back. The problem happened when he wasn't able to pay him back, and that's why Bassanio was kind of worried. Okay, do you get the idea?
Yeah.
So this is how the whole pound of flesh story came about, and he agreed to it. Antonio, of course, agreed to it. Okay.